When I was 14 years old, I got my first job. It was at a movie theater. Some years later, I met my wife at a movie theater. I've been a movie fan for a very long time. In fact, the last 30 years, I worked for a ministry called the Christian Film and Television Commission, and we analyzed movies according to the amount of language and violence and sex and nudity and many other factors. I built a database that would help us to calculate all this and create these reports, and we'd present the reports. Great ministry, and still is, and great friends of mine. But their focus, and is right, is on encouraging and informing. But I'm a very creative guy. And so I retired from that ministry so that I could then exercise some of my creativity in showing instead of just informing. Say, Hollywood, watch this. This is how you can really make some money. So I have been working on scripts and for movies, television. I've even written some novels and things that apply a lot of what I learned at Movie Guide as far as how to reach some large audiences. Oh, the large audiences. You know, when you think about it, who on earth doesn't want to leave a better world for their children and grandchildren? Who doesn't want a nicer neighborhood, good schools, and good entertainment? They want, kindness. They don't want hate. They want love. They don't want racism. They want unity. There are things that virtually everyone wants, but they're not so much in the movies. The movies have a lot of violence. They have heroes and things like that. But you don't have these movies that really promote basically heaven on earth. I mean, heaven on earth is not some big dictator coming down and telling people what they can and cannot do, like, oh, you can't do that, No, it's like a father. The father says, son, I have got some wonderful things for you. You ought to try this. And you get to do things with the Father. I mean, part of what I do when I work on all these scripts is I get to work with my Heavenly Father. But that audience is huge, and it is underserved. And here's the kicker. I'm a grandfather. The fastest growing demographic in the world is grandparents. I love to spend time with my grandchildren and to take them to something that's good. We go to a lot of the animated movies and so forth, but there's just not that much out there that's just really excites a grandparent and a grandchild. So all of the movies that I'm working on have a heroic grandparent and some wonderful children, so that there are things that will be there for the children to enjoy, the grandparents to enjoy, the parents to enjoy, all ages. I'm like Walt Disney in that respect. Walt said there's a kid in all of us, and so he didn't want to just make cartoons for kids. He wanted to make cartoons for the whole family. So I'm a great admirer of Walt Disney. I've worked for Disney before in the past, and loved it. I've read lots of books on Walt. Well, the first movie that I have for this audience is called The Sound of Heaven, and it's my 21st century Sound of Music. It's a big musical with lots and lots of joy. I wish I could have a young Julie Andrews in it, but it's not. The main character in this one is a young man. But it's still just loaded with joy. It has a mother singing a song called Something Wonderful, where she's hoping for wonderful things for her children. There's a romance song for the teenagers that are in love called A Gift. And then there's a fun song where the troop from Ukraine, where the story starts, are going to America. So they sing the song "Going to America." That's a lot of fun. And then the movie ends. I can't give away the ending, but I'll tell you this: it's euphoria. The final song is the theme song, "The Sound of Heaven," and it's like a 21st century Handel's Messiah. I mean, people should just float out of the theater. It's so much fun. And I would so love to see the movie presented in some of the old movie palaces, like the Radio City Music Hall or the Fox Theater in Atlanta, these guys, and have program books and pre-show orchestral music and the red curtain opens before the movie starts, and no commercials, not allowed. And so this is like a step back and into the old days of the roadshow musical. One of the things we're learning in the movie industry, and this also plays back to my research, is that movies, more and more, the ones that are successful, are events. Because you've got these televisions at home that are, 70 inches wide, and they're super high definition, and they just whomp the trump out of what I had as a kid, little black and white TVs that flickered, and you didn't know whether the show was going to come on or not. They're beautiful big TVs and amazing shows and stuff. So, you've got a lot you can watch at home. What's going to get you out to a movie theater? Well, you need something that's like a family event. Well, that's what I want to create. I want to create this event that just delights the whole family, and they remember it for generations to come, and it's popular for a very long time. And one day it would be quite a plum to have on your streaming library. So that's what my first one is. Oh, I have a whole slate of things, but I'm a little bit like Pixar in that I don't want to just make, I made a musical, I'm going to make more musicals. No, I want to make a thriller, I want to make a big adventure, comedy, romance. I've got all of those in the pipeline, and I just have so much fun writing stories. And so I want to make this variety of things that somebody says, the franchise for me is not supposed to be The Sound of Heaven. It's supposed to be David Outten Productions. I say, oh, look, this guy made that. What's he going to do next? Well, the neat thing about Pixar was that they made Toy Story, and it just delighted me. I love Toy Story. But they didn't start right out by saying making Toy Story 2, 3, 4, 5 right off the bat. No, they made some amazingly creative things. One movie to the next was extremely different. You've got a rat cooking in the gourmet chef in the kitchen. So much fun. And a robot who doesn't even say a word to the movie and still manages to be tremendously entertaining. And the old man going up with the balloons, just with a kid. I mean, they were great. I used to go see them every time on opening day. I mean, I just couldn't wait for the next Pixar movie. Well, that's the way I'd like David Outten Productions to be. I want it to be the franchise, and people to look forward to what we've got coming next. Oh, I have Ambassador of Heaven. And Ambassador of Heaven is one that I came up with because I was a script finalist reviewer, and I would read 10 or 20 scripts a year for a prize that was given out. And one year I was reading these and I thought, oh my goodness, nothing seems to start with a bang. They're all like, you get through the first 5 pages and you're going, Are we going to get to anything interesting? And yes, many of them did, but the first 5 pages were kind of difficult. So I thought, oh, it would be so much fun to write something that has a bang at the start. So that's how Ambassador of Heaven got started. So it begins with this man. He comes running into a doctor's office screaming, "Everybody out! Everybody out!" So he gets everybody out of the building, including the doctor and all, and they think he's a total nutcase weirdo. And he's got them across the street, and he gets in this van of his and drives off, and the doctor gets his phone and calls 911 and says some weirdo nut. And about the time he gets the word nut out of his mouth, his whole office and every car in the parking lot goes down the side of the hill in an earthquake. And he's left standing there with all of his patients living happily, looking at everything go down the hill, and suddenly has a very different opinion of this man. So and there are some more incidents that the man goes through that are just a lot of fun. And so week by week he winds up on these adventures, a little bit like Touched by an Angel, where he ministers to people. Now there's not a lot of miracles. He doesn't fly around like an angel or anything, but he does talk to God. And he gets these brilliant things to do for people, and he gets to talk to major corporations and universities and in the ghetto and on a mission somewhere. He gets to go to all kinds of strange places, and it's just a lot of fun. Oh, I would say definitely it comes from God. He and I just have a good time. But here's what I would say to anybody who would like to be creative. Find something you really love. Just passionately love it. And you go, oh, I admire that so much. I learned to paint by enjoying Norman Rockwell and John Singer Sargent. I just loved their work. I mean, I could go to a museum and look at a John Singer Sargent painting for 2 hours, and the family would disown me, say, "Come on, we've got to go home." I'd just be looking at each brushstroke. It was so beautiful. Well, movies are kind of that way. You look at a really good Steven Spielberg movie, or you just listen to John Williams. Anything John Williams. You just go, oh. It's like, I listen to some John Williams, and you get really creative after just listening to John, because he's amazing. But you listen to amazing things and you get excited. The other day, I saw a movie called The Man Who Invented Christmas. And it was about Charles Dickens writing A Christmas Carol. I got so excited. I wrote a little novel called An Elementary Carol. And it's about a elementary school principal instead of a bookkeeping Scrooge. And so my guy, even his name is even Ebenezer. But I had the opportunity to then try and write this little short novel in Dickens style. And Dickens style is so beautiful because he brings humor into his descriptions of people. He makes characters that are very exaggerated, and they're just delightful. So I had a delightful time writing this little novel. I wrote another one recently before that called The Two Worlds of The Two Worlds of Timothy. Not Timothy. I'm getting my Timothy mixed up with my Wilbur's. Two Worlds of Wilbur Willoughby. And Wilbur, at the beginning of the novel, gets hit by a train, but as the train runs into him, an angel rescues him and takes him off to the side of the train so he's not injured. And the angel tells him that he has two worlds, one spiritual and one material. And so through the rest of the novel, Wilbur discovers his spiritual world and winds up in a battle with a little girl who is on the other end of the spiritual spectrum. She's kind of into the witchcraft thing, And so there's a battle between him and her that's just a lot of fun. And of course, she has some people over her that are really nasty, and so Wilbur winds up having to deal with them too. So it's quite an adventure, and I had fun putting that together. And another thing I do is I love poetry. I love songs. I wrote the songs for the musical, and the lyrics anyway, not the music. And so I wrote a couple of little children's books that are on Amazon that are they're like poetry in a way. And my daughter illustrated, and that was great. Well, Hollywood right now is going through an earthquake. They got struck by Netflix. They were not expecting this little company that distributed their DVDs, on rentals, to suddenly become this juggernaut that was going through the entertainment industry, turning cable subscribers into library subscribers. And they are all just scrambling. They're spending billions of dollars to adjust to this new Netflix model. Well, that's going to impact people like myself who want to write stories. Most of the stories you're going to write are likely to wind up on one of those streaming services, and fewer wind up in the theaters, because in order to get into the theater, you pretty much have to be an event film or expect a smaller audience for some niche. Some Christian films that are very good, and I enjoy a bunch of them. I have some people that I go to their movies on the very first day too, but they don't attract a huge audience. But they'll fill up a theater for a week or two, and so there's some of those. But the bread and butter of the movie theaters is the big event movies, the big budget Hollywood blockbusters, tent poles. And the thing is, these days, a tent pole is not just one movie, it's a series of movies. So a huge portion of the international box office is movies that are part of these series. And a series becomes like a brand. It's like if you're going to go to Walmart, or you're going to go to, well, who beats Walmart? Anyway, you go to a store, JCPenney or something, and that store, a Harry Potter series is like a store. You have your Harry Potter over here, and you have your Jurassic Parks over here, and you have your Star Wars there, and your Marvels here, and so those are like stores. And so Disney bought stores in Marvel and Star Wars, and they're buying 20th Century Fox to get the rest of Star Wars, and they get Avatar in the mix, and so they're buying franchises. So some of the things I'm working on may turn into franchises in that sense, but the franchise I'm really interested in is David Outten Productions becoming something like Pixar. Oh, it's funny. One of the people that I most admired in my life was Walt Disney. And he was the kind of person who thought outside of the box. I mean, I don't think he had a great deal of use for all of the bookkeepers and analysts. The people that would look and say, oh, here's what's selling. He would think, what do people want that's not selling, that I can make, that will open up a whole new opportunity? And that's where Snow White came from. That's where Disneyland came from. I so wanted to be part of Epcot, the experimental prototype community of tomorrow, as Walt designed it. But he died before they could get the ground broken on that, and of course nobody else was Walt Disney, so it didn't really come to pass. I actually worked for Epcot Center. I used to drive around in the middle of the night in a little golf cart and go around and do repair artwork on little characters in the different shows and things. But when Epcot opened, I was working there. But that was just Epcot Center. It wasn't the real Epcot. I was very sad when Walt died, but I kind of took over because he died at a couple of years younger than I am right now. He died at 65. I'm 67. And I thought, well, why not just go for it? So, and I loved Steve Jobs as well, because here was a guy who thought ahead. Again, he was a fellow that, they had their bookkeepers and their analysts and stuff, but no, he was, let's change the world, was his attitude, So it must have been kind of fun to be like a Steve Jobs when the iPhone was being made, and the analysts out there were analyzing the sales of Blackberries. And there's Steve sitting there with the iPhone, and he knows what's coming. That would have been fun. I feel like that. I'm a guy who's working on some projects that I just feel like Steve Jobs. Like, man, if people only knew how big the audience is for something that brings heaven to earth. It just delights me. So it doesn't frighten me being the age that I am. I enjoy it. I just delight in it. So. Oh, yes. You see, heaven to earth, and this is in my little book, The Two Worlds of Wilbur Willoughby. On the one side over here, you have darkness, and on the other side, you have light. And darkness is filled with hate and anger and pride and all this, and the love side is filled with love and forgiveness and peace and joy and patience and kindness. And so bringing heaven to earth is bringing lots of this. I mean, lots of this. Lots and lots of joy and kindness and love. And that's what God wants us to have here on earth, is a whole lot more of that. And a whole lot less of racism and hatred and terrorism and war and all that kind of thing. I mean, we don't want any more Hitlers. We don't want any more Stalins. We want peace and joy. And the movie business, the entertainment industry helps shape the culture. I mean, if you look at the films of Germany, Adolf Hitler's time, or Stalin's movies, they were promoting the ugliness. They promoted ugliness. So we want to promote beauty, love beauty. Well, I've really only I wrote a script that I sold and it got made into a movie. But what I would recommend to someone who wants to make movies is find something that you really admire. Say you admire Steven Spielberg, or I used to really love the work of David Lean. He made Bridge on the River Kwai, Lawrence of Arabia, Dr. Zhivago. He could make movies that were just stunningly beautiful, and yet had powerful stories to them. So you look at someone like that and you say, okay, what about their technique would I like to include? And when you have enough different people like that, you take a little of this and a little of that, and you combine it into something that becomes you. And, the world is full of people who have become creative because they love somebody else. I love John Singer Sargent paintings. He had several artists that he greatly admired before he started painting his paintings. So that's where a lot of that comes from. And of course, my attitude is, if you get to know God, He's the ultimate artist. I mean, there is no artist greater than God. You just look at your hand. I mean, or your eyes, Wow, what a creation. I mean, I love my iPhone. Where is it over here? Here's my iPhone. Okay, iPhone. But the hand holding the iPhone is a much more amazing design. It's been around for centuries. Before somebody even made a club to clunk something with, this hand was designed. Do you have any idea what's involved in that? In the little tiny details. It's incredible. So if you admire the ultimate artist, and you work with that ultimate artist, you can have a great time. And if anybody thinks that God is some big nasty fuddy-duddy in the sky, oh, they're so mistaken. Because my relationship to God is enjoyable, is fun. We delight each other. I try and delight Him. He tries to delight me. We just have a delight contest. I have a delightful life.